Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the community discussion on Fallout 5. Hope you're doing well today. Thank you so much for all the feedback on the last video. Today we are going to get into discussing NPC storylines, quests, factions and anything else we can fit in within about 20 to 25 minutes. Let's do it! Okay, so let's just quickly go through the guidelines again. Because this is a series of videos, I'm sure some people might click on the second or the third video first or whatever. So this is really designed as a forum to discuss and prompt opinions on what a new Fallout may look like. In this video or this video series, we're referring that as Fallout 5. My role in this is to put forward aspects of the game. I'll give an opinion on that various aspects of the game, and I will do that to prompt discussion. Feel free, if you have a different point of view from mine or you slightly disagree with me, to disagree, that's fine, but please do that respectfully and respect the other members of the community who are also making comments. Also, as I said in the first video, this is not a video that is designed to either defend or attack Bethesda in any way, so please, if that's what you want to do, then you may well have to do that somewhere else, because any derogatory comments will not show up in the feed and will be deleted straight away. And also, you know, if that's persistent, then there may be suspensions or bans put in place, and that's something I really do not want to do, but I need to be honest with you up front about how this whole process is going to work. So to make comments, you can make them down below, or you can join the thread that we've put together in the Discord. Discord link is in my about section on my YouTube channel. Yeah, it's hopefully it will be good. There'll be a lot of discussion on this, and hopefully we will get something at the end of it that shows exactly what the community want to have as the next Fallout, and I'm toying with the idea of sending that to Bethesda at some point. Okay, so let's get into it, and where I'd like to start from last week is NPC storylines specifically. Now, Bethesda I think in my opinion, made a very big mistake with 76 and not including NPCs. NPCs are part of the fabric of Fallout and need to be in the game. It's one thing that I love about New Vegas. It's one thing I love about Fallout 4. And now that they've put NPCs in 76, it's just made such a huge difference to the game. And I love the fact that it's almost like a side quest or something else that you can do is to pick up one of the NPCs, make them your companion, and then have them with you as you traverse the Fallout landscape. And there is a backstory. They have a backstory and a series of quests that are associated with that. Now, a lot of this discussion I'm going to be referencing Fallout 4 with, because that's the most recent game that I've played, and I have some very strong opinions on how they approach this in Fallout 4. If you have some thoughts from Fallout 3, New Vegas, 76, whatever, please feel free to put those forward. So here's the thing in Fallout 4, the NPCs, which NPCs, if you're not aware, is non-playable characters, kind of took a twist, where you could take some of these NPCs and you could make them your companion. Now, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but what I want to talk about in general is NPCs and the quality of the NPCs and specifically in Fallout 4, because it's the most recent one. 76 did add NPCs in, but again, you know, I don't think they got to the level that they did in 4, where you could really kind of be immersed into the game, and that's what they're about. It's being immersed into the game, into different areas. If you think about Codsworth and Mama Murphy in Sanctuary, if you think about Tinker Tom and Pam and Desdemona with the railroad, there just were so many NPCs that you came across in your journeys through the Commonwealth, and it really did add a lot to the fabric of the overall game, in my opinion. Yeah, Cleo and Bobby No-Nose. Remember Bobby No-Nose and Good Neighbor? There was just so many people there that you could associate. There was a little bit of a storyline, although they didn't come with you. Although Tinker Tom, as I found out recently, does kind of join you in the Commonwealth at some point. But you know, they would give you tasks to do, and yeah. And that kind of random Vault-Tec guy as well. I like that kind of randomness. Trash Can Carla. So many characters that you got to know and got to love. So here's my first question. Is there any NPCs from Fallout 4 that you would like to see return in Fallout 5? If so, you know, with and I'm thinking with a story expansion of some kind. And if so, who would those be? Should we have NPCs in Fallout 5? For me, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute yes. But let me know. You might have a different view on this. And I think, you know, one of the things that did happen with Fallout 4, and which is, I think, is very important, that not all NPCs were nice NPCs. I mean, yeah. We're going to talk about Marcy. Yeah, of course, we have to talk about Marcy because apparently she was voted as the most hated character in Fallout 4. But I think it's important that you have that balance of characters that you're going to meet. Some of which are a little bit abrasive, some of which are very pleasant to meet, and everything in between. And yeah, I think it's an important kind of important kind of thing to have in the game. And I'm scrolling through the list of NPCs that they had in Fallout 4. There is a huge amount of people. It's a huge undertaking by Bethesda to have that many people. So did you feel that there were too many NPCs in Fallout 4 and should we reduce it? Where is your head at with all of that? Now I want to take this discussion a little bit further, and I want to go into those playable characters that we found in Fallout 4, and certainly in New Vegas, where they become your companion, and they have their very own storyline, and how you felt about this. And this will kind of dovetail into the quests in Fallout 4 as well. We'll talk a little bit about the questing in Fallout 4, and in Fallout in general, and see what you think about that. So, one of the things that I loved about Fallout New Vegas originally, because that was the first Fallout that I personally played, was the fact that you had the ability to have companions, and my favourite companion, I've got to say, was Boone in that game. And I think I ended up with Boone and Edie in the end, and traversed the landscape with both of those guys and had a lot of fun. You know, there was some dialect there. But I think with Fallout 4, they took that to a whole different level of interaction. And, you know, it's hard to pick a favourite companion in Fallout 4. I loved Kate, Piper, Carrie, Nick Valentine. It has a special kind of place for me. I always loved having Dogmeat around, and I did have Dogmeat in Fallout 3, but Dogmeat in Fallout 3 could be killed fairly easily, let's be honest. And so it's I think they've always had those companions, or at least a companion to have with you. But Fallout 4 seemed to take it to a different level, because each of those companions suddenly had a storyline that you needed to follow, and it kept you playing the game. It really did keep you playing the game to complete each of those companion storylines and get generally you got a specific perk or some buff to your character for doing that, so it was a good reward. And it was fun just to have them on the road and see how the different companions, what strengths and weaknesses they had, and hear their storyline. However, the way that they did it in Fallout 4 was rather annoying from our point of view. So, here's the first question. Given that you run around in Fallout 76 essentially with no companion. The only companions you really had in 76 were other players. So, should we have companions in Fallout 5? Is it essential to the overall gameplay? I spoke earlier about, in the last video about co-op and the potential of co-op. But even if we have co-op, I still believe that we should have at least one slot for a companion. And if you think we should have companions, how many companions should you have? Now, I've got to say with Fallout 4, I always ran a mod where I had Dogmate as a companion permanently, so that allowed me to have 2, and I actually liked that number. It was a nice balance of having 2 companions, and the companions had different strengths and different things that they would bring as far as detecting enemies and all kinds of stuff. So let me know what you think. I guess then, if you do think we should have companions in the game, did we have enough companions in Fallout 4, for instance? Were there not enough? Where do you think that was? For me, quite frankly, I thought there was maybe just a fraction too many in Fallout 4. And some of kind of the things that I think they could improve on with the NPCs, the companion storylines, is that it really needs to be done a little bit better, in as much as what I found with companion storylines is they would all of a sudden just want to talk to you in the most awkward of places or awkward at times, and it was very, very random how you triggered their quest lines. Sometimes it was a bit ad hoc, if you like. You never knew when their storylines would trigger in the quests for their storylines, and I'd like to see that a little bit more streamlined. If you do pick up a companion, maybe you have to play with them for an hour and it triggers the storyline, and then you play through their storyline regardless where you are in the campaign. And it's almost like a side quest or side missions. You often do their quest line and get taken to various places in the map with their backstory. The other thing that I'd really like to see, and it was a thing that having come back to Fallout 4 recently in a new playthrough, I had already played through a number of companions' storylines, but I had no idea if I'd completed them or not. I had no idea at what point in their storyline I was. So I'd like to see some kind of indicator as you work your way through with, say, a Nick Valentine, or a Deacon, or a McCready, or whoever it might be, Kate, some indicator of how far along their storyline you are, 20%, 40%, whatever it might be, so that you know how far you've got to go with that storyline. I loved what I did like about Fallout 4 is they did kind of intertwine it with the main campaign or the main quest lines, and I like that a lot, and there's no reason why they couldn't do it in a Fallout 5. But yeah, I think it just needed to be cleaned up a little bit. For instance, with Preston Garvey's storyline, boy oh boy did that one go on, and it was repetitive, and it would be kind of nice to know. It'd be kind of nice for them to, in that sense, cap the number of settlements in Preston Garvey's situation that you had to actually rescue before it progressed the storyline. And I'd like to see some kind of a maximum amount of quests that you have to do in that kind of scenario, so that you're not frustrated. And we will talk about Preston's quests when we get to the main quests in a bit. But yeah, those kind of fetch missions, I'd like to see maybe capped at 5, 6, whatever it might be for that character. And every time you do a fetch mission, it kind of triggers a little bit more of the storyline, something like that. I think it's a necessity to be in the game, but it just needs that little bit of tweaking. to make it a little bit more plausible. Now, who would you like to see those companions come back and have an expanded storyline? It would be. I think it has to happen. They have to have an expanded storyline into Fallout 5 with some of the companions that you had in Fallout 4. I'd love to kind of expand people like McCready or maybe Kate's storyline or whatever. Let me know. So let's get into quests, general quests. And we're talking about Preston Garvey. I think that was one of the annoying things for me in Fallout 4 was that kind of repetitive quest. And one of the annoying things about the whole Preston Garvey situation was that if you didn't complete his storyline and you'd be doing other things and suddenly you'd have to save this settlement and save that settlement and if you didn't complete the storyline. And as I found recently, I was in DLC content and it was still asking me to save settlements back in the Commonwealth when I was in a DLC pack trying to complete that storyline. I think if they decide to go with that kind of quest line this time, they need to have some kind of thing that recognizes that you're in an expansion or you're doing whatever it is, and that it needs to be able to be toggled on and off. Or as I said earlier, maybe with those repetitive quest lines, there is a toggle or a maximum amount of those quests that you do, and that's it. It's not just a constant thing. I understand why they did it as far as the Minutemen kind of quest line, but boy oh boy did it get annoying. And to be honest, in my most recent playthrough, I just ended up completely ignoring it. And I couldn't give a flying you-know-what about how happy the settlers were because I was too immersed into other storylines. And that is the point here. I have never liked anything in the Fallout universe that takes me out of the immersion of the storyline and the questing and the exploring and the looting and etc. And that goes back to weapons repair and armor repair and having to manage your inventory, which I understand's all part of the game, but I really do love just to get into a Fallout game and just go from A to B to Z, D to Z, whatever, and be able to be fully immersed. So yeah, those settlement quests were one of those that just kept just being a little bit of annoyance to the point you either went and fixed it or you just completely ignored it. So if it could be switched on and off when you were doing DLC content, for instance, that would be fantastic. Now, here is a thing I want to throw forward to you and have some discussion on, and I'm going to use the example of another game to do this. How do you feel about quests having a specific level that they recommend you do those at? And it goes as well, that would work together as well with the map being at a certain level in certain regions of the map. How do you feel about that? You can see here while I'm talking about it, I'm showing you footage from Assassin's Creed Origins. Just to give you an example now, it's not necessarily the menus would look like this, but at least it gives you an example where you can see my characters at a certain level, and there's a whole lot of quests there that I can do right now, or there are other quests that it suggests I wait, and it really does, what it would really do is it would push you into doing lots of side quests, and again, this is where your companion side quests could come in very valuable to be able to get to a certain level where you progress with the main storyline quests. I don't think it's something that's traditionally been done, although I think there is kind of sort of that mechanism built into the game if you think about it. If you go to Gunner's Plaza in Fallout 4, for instance, too quickly, you are going to get punished for it. There are some of those super muties that you would have seen, these that have that big red skull above their head, which is saying, no, you really shouldn't be fighting this guy at this point in time. So they've sort of done that in Fallout 4, but it's not been or in a Fallout game before, but it hasn't been done in the formal way. And I just wonder what you think about this. Also, the good thing about something like an Assassin's Creed Origins is the way that they have the filtering of main quests and side quests and the level they're at. And I really like that. And I think Fallout could benefit from having a little better interface as far as being able to filter out side quests from main quests. And I also want to see, and it's something they've introduced into 76 now, I also want to be able to have the quest I'm working on, or quests I'm working on, shown on the main screen, which is something that Fallout 4 didn't have, and I think it was a mistake. And you can see by the footage, and that's another one. So I guess, I'll hark on with Fallout 4 a lot, and 76 will be 4 and 76 will be the reference. But you can clearly see by the footage we have here. There was 3 sets of quests. So in 4, basically main quest, side quest, and these miscellaneous quests, which you can see on the screen right now. And I think you can see quite clearly the miscellaneous quests are because you're able to display them, you're much more likely to go and focus on them. And that was one thing in 4, I think, that has struck me, that you had these miscellaneous quests, but they sat at the bottom of the quest pile, and you would miss them if you weren't paying huge amount of attention to them. So having that ability to be able to see all these different quest lines clearer I think is going to be a very big plus in my mind. Now, is there anything else that you think I've missed with this discussion on questing? Please let me know. I think the only thing in my mind that needs further discussion is the factions. And so which factions do you believe should be in Fallout 5? And should we have some new factions? I guess it is a little bit dependent on where Fallout 5 is going to be set, and we'll talk about that in a later video. But what are your favourite factions from the past, and which ones do you think should be included, and should we include them? That is one thing that I loved about Fallout 4, is the way that the main storyline got to a certain point, and then you branched off and you started working with each of the factions, and then at some point you come back and you have to make a choice about who you side with. Is that something that we need to do with Fallout 5? And if so, which factions would you have in place for your ideal Fallout? So it's another thing that I found recently, because I think from memory, my first playthrough of Fallout 4, I sided with the Brotherhood of Steel. The one that I'm doing now, or I've just completed recently, I was working with the Railroad, and that for every kind of decision that you make on what faction you're going to side with, there are consequences, and it changed what happened, without spoiling it too much, but it changed what happened in the Commonwealth, because obviously I upset the Brotherhood of Steel quite a bit, and there was a whole lot of things that I hadn't experienced before. Suddenly, because I decided to side with the Railroad, it suddenly started happening that I hadn't experienced in Fallout 4 before. And so I love that dynamic. It does speak to the replayability of the game, and the fact that you can choose different paths at a certain point in the quest line to go down, and your gameplay in the end game is completely different in all those scenarios. And we were discussing that within the community recently about which ones have you chosen, which ones haven't you chosen, why haven't you chosen certain factions to side with, and etc. So I think it's a pretty much a no-brainer about factions being in the game. They have to be in the game. It's just a case of which ones, and how they pad out the storyline, and how that all interacts with the main storyline, I guess. And is there any improvements with the faction storylines that you've done so far that you think could be tweaked? Let me know. Okay, so I want to keep these videos to about a 20-25 minute discussion level, so that you can digest it, you can maybe replay them back, have a think about what your feelings are on some of the points we've raised, and be able to give me feedback. So that will do it for today, and I thank you so much in advance for participating in this and giving me your opinions, your feelings, etc. In the next one, what I think we will do is we'll cover a whole lot of stuff, like so the building mode, for instance. What else have we still got to talk about? Let me have a look. The skill tree still got to talk about. I want to have a look at the in-game HUD and the interface for in-game, and have a discussion on that. So that'll probably fill up a good 20-25 minutes in the next one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. Catch you next time. See ya.